Welcome to Lugar Stories, a podcast of the stories in and around the magical land of Lugar.
Welcome, everyone. I am your host for our podcast today, Haley Marie, and I am here with Lale Hancock, our Lugar ambassador. And Lale does so many things. She's also an Access Consciousness certified facilitator in many of the different specialties as well. She also works with Access Consciousness. She has her own businesses as well. And she also works with some very special projects such as Actions for Futures and Forest for Futures. And I'm wondering, Lale, for all of our listeners out there who aren't familiar with Actions for Futures and Forest for Futures, what is Actions for Futures?
Well, first, thank you for having me here and for having truly one of my most favorite conversations in the world. Actions for Future was created a couple of years ago by the founder of Access Consciousness, the co-founder, and some others. And really it was looking at the actions we take today. What futures do they create? And, for example, most of us think, okay, I went to the store. But you didn't just go to the store. Who are the people that you met along the way going to the store? And then what are these domino effects of what you are generating and creating for you, for them, and then that sprinkles out into the world? Well, each of those actions that we take, even by, talking to someone about a business deal, or we talk to someone about a tree or whatever is going on, all of these have effects and actions that actually are for more than just for today. And when we originally started, it really was looking at, it didn't matter how old you are, it didn't matter what background you came from. What are ways that we can empower to have a greater world? And with that also came this other project, which is called Forest for Futures. And one of those projects, actually, Forest for Futures, is inside of Lugar. And you guys are on the Lugar podcast, so you know already the magic of Lugar. But there's a whole section that's the national preserved land. And I think it's over 1,000 acres of land. And every single day we're planting new trees there. So Forest for Future isn't just about an organization who's planting trees, but it includes that. It's what actions are we taking today in partnership with Mother Earth to create a future where we're all thriving, not just Mother Earth, all of us, including Mother Earth. So Forest for Futures was created as a way where people can partner and sponsor trees, but it's part of Actions for Future. So in addition to the planting, what else can we be and do together that creates these actions that create a greater planet?
Yeah, that's amazing how we contribute to the earth and we contribute to creating something greater, even if we don't know what that looks like. I think a lot of times when people think of contributing to something in an organization, we want to know exactly what that looks like. And I remember a conversation about Actions for Futures. And Actions for Futures, it's there to assist us to create a greater future in some way and to contribute to what we aren't, maybe what we're aware of, but what we're not cognizant of just yet. Could you talk a little bit about that, contributing to the future that we're not yet, I don't want to say that we're not yet aware of, but that we don't see? Because I think a lot of times when we think of creating and contributing to something, we want to see what it looks like.
Yeah. Well, I think actually El Lugar is such a great example of that too. When Claudio Cano and Gary Douglas and Dr. Dane here and Simone Millises and Brendan Watt, when they all initially went to go see a property, they really were looking at a property where they can build a resort and where we can have our events every year. But Gary's always looking not just at a piece of land. He's always looking at what are ways we can partner with the land in what we create so that it's not there to harm or damage the earth, but becomes this elegant partnership with nature. And I would say back then, it really was the trust in his knowing of wanting to purchase this property because of what he was perceiving could actually be the future. It had been a organic cattle farm, and truly one of the few places on the planet that the land hasn't been abused. Like I personally, for me, one day we came there for an event with the investors and other people at this 7-day event in Costa Rica, and I wasn't feeling very good. And it was so amazing to me the minute the bus tires hit the land. We weren't even on the property yet. We were just in the gravel part coming to the property. My body relaxed and all the feeling of nausea dissipated and was gone. By the time we hit the gate, I felt even better than I had the day before. Like there was this amazing nurturing from this land that I really don't know there's words that we can use to describe it, but that is. And it was his knowing when he first saw this property of, yes, this can be something that can be something that can live for generations and generations and generations. And, most people think of today. They're not even thinking of tomorrow. But if we start to take actions and ask, what will this choice create in 5 years? What will the world be like in 5 years? You won't have answers. You won't have words, but you will start to perceive an energy that's either very expansive or one that feels like it's shrinking. Well, the shrinking ones, they're not the ones you probably want to take this first step forward with. You can, but the light, expansive ones, that's the future talking with you and saying, hey, there's possibilities here.
Thank you. Yes, that was awesome. And I'm wondering, how can our listeners invest in Actions for Futures and Forest for Futures?
Yeah. So we have this beautiful website that just launched, I don't know, probably in the last 4 weeks. And you can go to actionsforfutures.com. And there is an S after actions and futures, just so you know. And there you can, you can contact us for more information if you would like, but there's also ways that you can invest financially. And then the trees is forestforfutures.com, or there's a particular link when you get to Actions for Futures. If you come down just a little bit, it says Forest for Futures sponsor a tree. And it's about creating a future where we live in communion with nature, being stewards of the earth. In doing that, we become conscious that every choice can be a contribution to us, our life, and to nature. And, that's something that I wish all of us learn in school. Unfortunately, they don't. And I hope the wave of the next generation, because they're more aware of nature, they're more aware of the earth. I wonder what the new generations will actually be putting in place and what the schools will look like. But the first place is about how can we be in communion with the earth? And like I mentioned, with Actions for Futures, there are things that we are doing. Like, for example, the Force for Futures project and planting the trees, a lot of times people think, oh, someone's planting a tree. Okay, so what? But this is actually very unique. And in Costa Rica, they're so environmentally friendly. And our particular property, everything's done by hand. There's no pesticide, there's no chemicals, there's no large spraying of things. It really is people and their love, their passion for these trees and the land, coming and nurturing and making sure for every tree that's planted, that tree actually gets to thrive and grow. Not plant and hope that it somehow survives, give it its chemicals, and then one day we come back and see it again, Right. So you can actually sponsor a tree. You can sponsor many trees. And we actually have a program with corporations that I'm working with right now. So if there's an organization that would also like to partner with us and sponsor some trees and really those actions for the future, that's another possibility too.
That's amazing. And I really love what you said about how you would love to see in our schools, the kids learning about this partnership with the earth, about communing with nature. I grew up in a different time, and we didn't even learn those things back then, although things weren't as commercialized. And we did have a little bit more contact with nature, I sense, at that time. And what would that create and change if we actually learned about communing with the earth from this young age? If people actually learned to have contribution and gratitude for the earth at this, from the time that they grow up, what could we create and change with creating a greater living earth?
Well, you know what? It's interesting. When we contribute to the earth, just from you laughing, you're spreading that joy into the whole world. And it sounds so easy, almost like too easy, but that's how it works. Like, we actually are a lot more powerful than we realize. And when you contribute, for Actions for Future, we even have it that people can do €1 a day, like a sponsorship of €1 a day. And what they find is when they invested in themselves, okay, that's investing in you and your future, investing in nature and Mother Earth, their whole life expands. They end up having more joy. They have more possibilities. Their businesses grow. Their finances grow. It's not about like, how much am I investing? Therefore, I'm getting that much from the planet.
Right.
That one, I'm going to do this. That kind of gets this whole domino effect of possibilities. And nature is here to support us, and nature is here to have fun with us, if we're willing to actually receive it.
Yes, for sure. And could you talk a little bit more about the trees?
Yeah.
Simply because, I see so many people talking about the conversations that they are having with the trees. And I saw something that you had posted about a conversation that you had with a tree. And I think it's something that's very unique, yet something that we can all do and be aware of. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. It's interesting. Most of us, I think, as kids, we grew up playing outside, I think the more recent generations, maybe they didn't get that as much as we did from our generation, but I remember just hours. We had this they had this huge forest next to where I lived. And I remember we'd take our toys and dolls with us, and then we'd go play. We'd be gone, 4, 5, 6 hours. And then we'd come home for dinner. So for me, there's always been this special connection with the earth and with trees. And I think there was a while that I never lost it, but it just was different. And I've realized with the tools of Access Consciousness, this whole restoration of communion with Earth has opened up a whole new world for me. And I'm in Lisbon. I'm staying in Lisbon until Sunday. And, there's a lot of buildings. I mean, it's city life, right? And so I asked people, please take me where the trees are. Like, being here in the city is just not as easy for my body. So they take me to this beautiful park, and they had 300-year-old and greater trees. And there was one that just kept pulling me. It was just so magical. It was just like pulling me over. And there's a cute little cafe, so you could sit right next to the trees. And I sat down just for like 2 seconds, and it was like, come here, sit on my root, And I know it sounds kind of crazy, a tree's talking to you, but they do. They talk to us. It just doesn't sound the way we mostly think it does. And so I went and I laid on one of the roots. I mean, it was, I can't even explain it to you. I'm just going to have to tell you, you're going to have to perceive the energy of it. But like, it was like, in the movie Avatar, that energy of this communion to everything. That's how I felt. I felt like it went through my feet, throughout my whole body. And then I was connected to every part of planet Earth and beyond. And it's funny, for 2 years, I've been asking a question, something in my life. And I kept getting little awarenesses of different things, but there wasn't a lot of clarity. 2 minutes on this tree, literally on this tree. And I got awareness. Like, it just was like, boom, right there in front of me. And I was like, all it took was this magical tree. Like, where have I been the last 2 years? Why wasn't I here? And after that, my body relaxed even greater and just felt so much creativity, so many ideas. Like, there was just this whole new world of like doors of possibilities that opened. And how often does that happen? And we just may not pay attention to it. Like you said, Haley, we all have this gift. It's not like I'm special and other people can't do this. It's our willingness to allow us to relax our mind and let it go, and actually allow the real you, being you, and allowing you to receive from everything that this magical world has to offer us.
Yes. And, when we contribute to nature, it's like you said, it opens us to that receiving. And you don't have to do anything special. Just contribute some energy to the earth. You can do it monetarily. You can just do it with just sending the earth energy, sending the trees energy, being present with them, even being present or contributing to projects like this, whether you follow on social media or you're just a part of watching it grow and contributing the energy, whatever it is, it changes your receiving. And it opens you to receiving. I know I've sensed that in my own world. I have a similar thing to you, is where when I was younger, I had that connection with the earth. We'd play in woods, we'd swim in lakes and all these wonderful things. And as an adult, I didn't have that so much in my world. And working with projects like a Lugar and contributing to things like Actions for Futures and Force for Futures, it really just changes your receiving. It changes what you're aware of in your own life and what you're present with, and a more willingness to be present in your own world to contribute to a greater future for yourself and for the planet.
What was interesting is this park was actually, it was a big park. And when we walked to the other side of it was this tree that was massive. The 300-year-old was massive roots and stuff, but it was really in this one contained area. there was this other tree. I have no idea what kind of tree it was, but it was so massive. The branches were so big and so wide. They created a carousel to hold it in place. And when we walked over there, I was like, how do I even take a picture of this? Like, how do you even capture the massiveness of this tree?
Yeah.
It was like, but it, once again, it was just showing us, like, you're not separate from me. You know, I think we think sometimes the world, we think the earth, we think, oh, this massive thing, you know, it's this thing outside of me. And this tree yesterday, like this other tree, was almost like, don't forget, you are part of this. It is the oneness of us together. And there's always another option. Like, even the way I have no idea who created it. I am curious. I've been asking people to give me more information because I would love to know who was it who created this carousel to have all the branches go on that, because you could tell the weight of it. You know, it actually, the carouseling assisted the tree from tipping over because it's so massive. And when I say carousel, I mean, like, it's this like round metal thing that almost looks like a huge umbrella. And then the branches are all laid on top of it and it's starting to grow from there. But it's to keep the tree stable so it doesn't tip over from its branches. And you know, this is what the founder of Access has always been sharing with us. You know, more and more people were just getting more and more aware of like this magic that's there with us and the earth together having this communion. And, but what I just kept thinking of him yesterday, I should probably send him some pictures because yet it really was, we are not separate. And that's why, you know, the actions that we take are not separate either. And, you know, I was talking to someone today, and I've been talking to a lot of businesses about Force for Futures and Actions for Futures, because many think like, how can I contribute to a greater world? Well, it starts with us asking that question and putting it into action of everything we be and do every day. It's not like, okay, you know, 364 days out of the year, let's abuse the world. And then one day we say we planted trees. That's not what we're talking about. But it's what new actions, what new things can we also add in today that allow the businesses to grow, that allow our lives to grow, that allow our wellnesses to grow, but also contribute to a greater future for us and the planet.
Yes, exactly. And when we have more people doing that, what can we create on this planet for more people to become aware of Actions for Futures, Force for Futures, for El Lugar, and for all the other people in the world who are working with projects like this and communing with the planet in this way. And you guys, if it's light for you and you'd like to contribute to Force for Futures or Actions for Futures or El Lugar, you can visit any of the websites, and there's donate buttons. You can buy a tree, and the trees from Forest for Futures are at El Lugar. So how cool is that you could buy a tree at El Lugar? So you can visit actionsforfutures.com, forestforfutures.com, or l-lugar.com. And what could that contribute to your world? Contributing to a greater living future for all of us and the planet.
Yeah. And for me, like what I also love is that we have the sponsors for the tree. So you could be a ranger, a protector, or a steward, depending on the amount that you allocate towards the trees. And you also get a certificate. And I've bought a bunch, and, they're also amazing as presents and gifts for others. You can just buy so many gifts for people, and after a while, doesn't really make sense to buy them the same silly stuff. Yeah. So, buying people some unique gifts and really investing in the future.
Yeah, I love that idea as purchasing the trees for gifts for people. Because like you said, you can only buy people so many gifts, and then it's like, what else do I buy them? And what a way to contribute to the planet and to your own self as well by buying somebody a tree or sponsoring a tree.
Well, what I love is that, we grew up saying, okay, if you give something, you get something. Okay. And the earth never does that. When you walk in a forest, that tree doesn't say, I'm sorry, did you pay the toll to come in? Did you deposit your money here? It just says, hi, I'm here and I'm infinite. I have infinite energy for you and for me and for the world. Now, how much fun can we have together? We can't be mad. We can't, and nothing can stick when you're in a forest because you're surrounded by this amazing energy. Well, what if our life was like us walking through the forest? What if we no longer looked at it as this, I have to give to get, but really this sponsorship of anything, the Actions for Futures, the Forest for Futures, is about contribution. Gift, receive simultaneously, which is what it is with nature. And so for me, this is the other reason I just wish all kids of all ages, includes us older ones, would actually know, by us being us, we are that gifting to the world. And now it's also about receiving from the world. So what contributions are we being, and how does it get even better than that,
Yes, that's awesome. And I really just love what you said about, but if you just, no matter where you were, you just walked like you were walking through the forest. And what would that change and create? That was, I really like that. Thank you.
So welcome. And thank you for this, because, I was telling someone the story about this, that, I got involved with Lugar at its very early stage. And it's been so beautiful to see the transformations of Lugar and how many people it's transformed along the way. So I was the investor relations person. And so I got to work with almost every single investor that came in and looking at their lives. I think a lot of times when we think about investing in something, we think, oh, do I have all the money in the bank? Am I able to just transfer money? Instead of that action you take to commit to you and to a future that you would like to see on the planet, or even not even knowing what that is, but just knowing, if I choose this, what will my life be like in 5 years? And it's super expansive. That choice is what will generate and create everything, including the money. And I know one particular investor you also had on your show. And, with her, I was talking to her when I was driving in California, and she was in Hawaii, or I can't remember, she was in Colorado. And she didn't have a lot of money. She didn't have a job, but she knew she had to be part of Lugar. Every time she even looked and thought about it, it just made her world so much greater. And do you know, as soon as she made that investment, money came in all sorts of ways. And she was able to pay off her investment right away. So, and generate more and more joy in her life. I mean, it's just so beyond monetary, But that's what we're being invited to with Actions for Futures. What action can you take today that will generate a different possibility for today and for tomorrow.
Thank you for that. That was beautiful. So thank you all for listening, and thank you so much for being here with me today, Lale, and having this really amazing conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. I love talking about El Lugar, Actions for Futures and Force for Futures. So it just makes my whole day.
Me too. It's an awesome conversation. Thank you. And we will see you on the next podcast.
Thank you for visiting El Lugar Stories. For more information on El Lugar, please visit our website, www.el-lugar.com, and follow us on our many social media channels, which you can find here on this page.